Hey everyone, it's Sean. In this video, I'm going to be walking through how to import an image into Illustrator that's just a simple line work illustration, and then using the live paint bucket tool, we're going to apply a bunch of colors and bring this artwork to life in a really quick and easy way. So let's just jump right in and get started. What I want to do first is create a new document, and I'm just going to create a 1920 by 1080 vertical oriented portrait oriented document, and I'm going to go ahead and hit create. Lovely. So the next thing we're going to do is we're going to bring in our reference image. I'm going to hit Command Shift P, which is file place in Illustrator, and I'm going to bring in this Sailor Moon PNG right here. So I'm just going to go ahead, I'm going to hit place, and I'm going to click and drag it out so it's a relatively good size to work with, like so. And now we get to use the image trace tool. Now, this is a really great line work illustration. I found this on Pinterest. It didn't have an author, so unfortunately I can't give credit to it, but whoever did this, it is exceptionally nice, and it's going to be really great to work with. So what we can do is we can go up to Window, and we can open up our image trace window here. We can hit Preview and see how our basic settings look with this image. You know, right off the bat, that did a fairly good job. I'm pretty happy with it. There might only be like one spot that I want to adjust, and I just want to see if I can close the gap there. I wonder if I'll be able to do that or not. You know what? I'm going to leave this as is because I know that it worked pretty well when I was building the example. So for those of you following along at home, I have my image trace set to black and white. The threshold is up at 128, and then my paths were actually set to 50%, not 52. So 50% paths. Corners are at 75, and the noise is at 25%. The method of fill here is creating cutout paths or abutting. I'm not using overlapping, just abutting. I want to create fills, not strokes, and everything else, you know, snap curves to lines. I definitely do not want to ignore the white because there was a lot of white in this image, so make sure that that's not checked on. And this is it. So we've already traced it. The next thing that we have to do is just go up top and hit expand. And now we have all of our beautiful shapes and paths to be able to work with. So what I did there when everything was selected, I just right clicked and I hit ungroup. And that's going to let me delete this clipping mask that was lingering on the outside of our drawing there. So obviously if we hit Command Y, we can see all of the crazy complex paths and shapes that it built for us, and we can get to work with our live paint bucket tool. So I'm going to close the image trace window, I'm going to close the Pathfinder window, and what I'm actually going to do is with my layers panel open, I'm going to click and drag layer 1 down to this new layer icon. I'm going to name layer 1 as original, that way we don't mess it up. I'm going to lock it, and I'm going to hide it. And then I'm going to rename this layer 1 copy as color. And we can work on the color layer. That way we always have our original to look back on. And now, for those of you familiar with the original Sailor Moon, you know, she has this beautiful bright blonde hair, a big red bow with some jewels in her hair and on her bow. She's wearing like a white one piece, and then got some blue detailing and all this fun stuff. So we're going to get to work on that. So let's open up our swatches panel, and the first thing that I'd like to show you guys is skin tones, how to get really good skin tones, because obviously these brownish colors here aren't really doing it. So if we click on this hamburger menu and we come down here to swatch library, there's actually a library full of skin tones, and if you click on it, it'll open up a new window for your swatches panel, and you'll have some skin tones to work with. This is a really great shortcut that I've always found pretty useful. So we can use our live paint bucket tool, K on your keyboard. Make sure your artwork is selected first. K on the keyboard, it turns it into a live paint selection path or shape, and we can start coloring things in. Cool. So hopefully it doesn't take super long for every single element. It shouldn't. Once you get going, I think it should start working fairly quickly. But what I'm doing is I'm just taking the color swatch in the top left corner here, and I'm using that as her base skin tone for everything. When you're dealing with this, you just want to be really careful that you don't accidentally select any of the black. That black is going to change the entire black contents of this entire piece to that color. And it just happens to be in the way that we dealt with it. So the trick to sort of making believable, complex illustration is making sure that you understand where your shadows are, where to variate the colors nicely, things like that. It's those sort of tricks that are, really going to help everything sort of stand out. Come on. Cool. If you do happen to mess up like I just did, you can just Command Z and it'll bring you back to the right amount of steps for you to be able to keep working away here. So we have her face relatively good to go. Now the next thing that I'm going to quickly do is just fill in her mouth. I'm going to come up and take this dark red color swatch. I'm just going to fill in her mouth like that. And now the next thing that I'd like to show you is because she wears this sort of Wonder Woman style tiara, is again using your swatch libraries. We can come over here and there's actually a gems. So under gradients, if you come over here, there's a gems and jewels section, and this is really awesome because it has a ton of metallic color swatches. And I know I'm just gonna choose the gold one here, and I'm going to hover over her sort of tiara shape, and I'm just gonna fill in these areas. So my paint bucket tool seems to be giving me a bit of a hassle. I'm just zooming in so that I can get that area right in there. Cool. Maybe fill in this guy. Great. Oh, come on. My computer's being awfully slow today, so I apologize. And I accidentally filled in her eye when I was trying to move around. Okay. There we go. Cool. So if you ever, man, this is getting frustrating. If you ever want to try and, my gosh, if you ever want to try and get back to a certain skin tone, you can use the eyedropper tool, and then that'll snap it back onto your color swatch, and you can go in and continue shading in properly all of your other details. So the next easy thing that I know I can tackle is her bow. So I've got my red color swatch, and I'm sort of just systematically going to go in and start filling in all of these areas like so. Okay, and the other thing too is it might be giving you a bit of a hard time if you still have this paint strokes option on. So to turn it off, just hit enter and come into this and change the paint strokes. I'm also going to change it from teal to more of a red tone. That seems to be easier for me to see, and it doesn't feel as invasive. So, you know, you guys can just systematically work through this on your own as well. It's basically a matter of just choosing the right color panel or color swatches that match your artwork. This is just a really great way to go about coloring your illustrations. So if you guys were to design your own or sketch out your own illustrations, scan them and then bring them into Illustrator and use the paint bucket as a method of coloring it in. This is just a really great workflow for trying to handle all of this, because obviously if you guys were to try and do a different method, Oops, sorry, I keep selecting the wrong thing. If you guys were to try and use a different method, you'd be in here coloring for a really long time, or maybe you'd be using the pen tool and trying to draw in all of these super complex shapes, and it would just take a really long time. So, just by coming in here and using some really easy methodology for coloring stuff in, you can really save yourself a lot of time and energy. Wonderful. Cool. So you can already see we're well on our way to getting things done. The other thing that I wanted to show you guys in the gems and jewels section is just the ability to choose any of these other jewels, because she has this wonderful gem in the middle of her bow tie here, so we're just going to color that guy in. Whoops, I think I accidentally colored in a stroke. Okay, and there we go. Cool. Sweet. Her hair is pretty simple. It's a yellow color, but none of these gross yellows, so we can just come up here and adjust it ever so slightly. I want to sort of have a variation. I want a nice dark, deep yellow where I can color in some of the shadowed parts of her hair. Some of the parts where the light might not hit it directly, like that. Possibly over here. Whoops. Cool. Lovely. Okay, terrific. And we're just going to come down here and finish this up. Great. And it's sort of like a paint by numbers. It's a little therapeutic. The more you guys go through this, the more you sort of get into flow, the easier it sort of gets to sort of see where all of your different colors are actually supposed to be hitting. And, the better your illustration will eventually look. I know when you first start out doing this sort of stuff, it never really looks how you think it's going to turn out, and it's always maybe a little disappointing at first and a little bit disheartening, but the more you carry on, the further you get with everything, the more it sort of comes together, and the better it all ends up looking. But this one is pretty complicated. There's tons of little tiny spaces to go in and fill in. But again, to get this kind of detail, this is a really great tool for going about doing that. There we go. So you guys sort of get the picture. I'll let you guys continue in coloring the rest of this. If you want, you can Google Sailor Moon for some visual reference about how the rest of her outfit is colored. Or I've left you guys with the final sort of colored version of this as well to be able to reference. So hopefully you found this tutorial useful for when you guys are working with your own illustration work. And I'll catch you guys in the next video. See ya!